Hey guys, this is Jason with Glitch in the System. This is the section where we are going to automate the testing of this vending machine application that we made, this very simple HTML JavaScript vending machine application that we made for the purpose of turning this in for an interview, challenge problem, solution. And if you didn't watch the previous video where we created this vending machine application, I'll put a link in the description so you can go ahead and do that, because that is a requirement of you being able to basically follow along with this tutorial. But also I will upload this into GitHub, and I'll also put that link in the description if you just wanted to skip past the creating the vending machine application and just download a copy of it. I will put that out on GitHub also, so you can grab that. Okay, so let's get started here. So there's a few things that you're going to need in order to go through this tutorial. First of all, as I said, you're going to need this vending machine application. You don't have to run a web server or anything, since it's super simple. You can just download it, or if you already have it, just basically open it by double clicking the index.html file, and it'll look like this. And just kind of make sure that it works. Just click on stuff and you should see some interaction. So if you click on something and something happens, that means it's more than likely working. Okay, other things that we're going to be needing are Nodejs. So WebdriverIO, the automation framework that we're going to be using for this tutorial, is based on Nodejs. So you're going to need Nodejs installed. If you don't already have it, go ahead and hit this download the LTS version. That's going to be the most stable one. And which is what I'm going to be using. So my version might be a little bit different from yours. If you don't know if you have Node.js installed, you can open a terminal. So you can do command prompt or terminal on Mac and just type in node --v, and then you can see there's a version. So you can see the version that I have is even older than this one, and either or will work perfectly fine. All right, next thing we're going to be using is Visual Studio Code. So this is not required, but it's going to make things easier. If you have a different code editor that you'd like to use, feel free to use that. But I'm using Visual Studio Code, so if you want to follow along exactly, I would do this one. So this is available for both Windows and Mac. It's free, and if you ever use any of my other tutorials, I'm most likely always using Visual Studio Code unless there's a specific reason not to. All right, and for Visual Studio Code, I will show you which extensions I have, because you may see your behavior is a little bit different than mine based on the extensions. So don't worry about these ones up here, but I do have ESLint, which does some of the code checking and formatting. I have Prettier here, which does more formatting as we save. And then I have Open in Browser, which just lets you right click and open stuff, and then Path and IntelliSense, which gives you the type ahead for when we're using relative paths. So out of these, I recommend ESLint and Path IntelliSense for this lesson if you want to follow along as I go, because it'll make things go easier. Okay, so with Visual Studio Code, go ahead and open up a folder somewhere. So I just created a WDIO folder. So WDIO is for WebdriverIO. And then for me, I am going to grab some files here. So I'm going to open up the terminal in Visual Studio Code. And you can see that it automatically opens you up to your main root directory that you have opened here. So I have on my GitHub repository, so let me go back here. I'll also put this link in my description. So what it is github.com/glitchinthesystem_jm. So if you go there, and there will be a repository. So if you don't see it listed here, you can click on repositories, and then what you're looking for is the WDIO starter files. So basically I put this together so that way I can easily grab these files and these configurations. So I have an ESLint configuration, I have a git ignore, a pretty RC. If you don't know what these things are, don't worry too much about it, because they will basically automatically do stuff for you. If you're more interested about what they do and how they work, feel free to do some research into them and look into that, or I will probably have courses or YouTube videos on describing what these things are for in the future. All right, so if you have Git on your machine, then you can, and it's set up to, and it's working. So once again, if you open a command prompt and type in Git, and if you see this thing, kind of a documentation here, that means you have Git installed. If you don't, then you can just go ahead and either get Git, or you can just choose the download zip and then open it up, extract it into the folder that you have Visual Studio Code open to, and then you'll be good. But since I have Git, I'm going to clone with SSH and then click this button over here, which will copy that text there. And inside of Visual Studio Code, I'm going to do git clone, so git space clone space, and then paste in that thing that you copied there. So that'll basically just bring all the files down to my system. So now you can see I have WDIO starter files, which has all these things in here. So I did it this way, so that way I want to show you how to automate this vending machine very quickly and easily without understanding all of the internals of WDIO, because that would take a lot longer. I wanted this to be more of a shorter video, but basically what we have here are WDIO config, which is the configuration file which tells WDIO what to do. So we have a few things in here. So specs, so these are the default tests that will be run. So basically this is going to look in the test folder, and then it's going to test anything that has .spec.js at the end. Okay. I do have this exclude here that says exclude starter spec.js, and we'll go into what this is in a second. So kind of keep note of that. A lot of these things I've set up just for usability. One thing, Chrome. So we're using Chrome in here. If you don't have Chrome installed, make sure you install it, or this will not work. And base URL, this is pointing to localhost, so that's why actually we're going to want to change that because we're not running a local server here. So what I'm going to do is basically whatever the path is for this HTML file, index.html file, you're going to want to paste it into here. Okay, so that's going to be the base URL. Okay, and make sure you save that and ignore if you get that error. And that's pretty much it. So don't worry too much about everything else in here, because we're just using the bare minimum. Okay, so a couple other things in here are the starter spec.js. So this is just kind of a template I made, so that way you can just easily right click and copy and paste, and you'll have a copy of the template of how to write the test case. So I'm going to rename this to I'm just going to put all my tests in one file, so vending machine spec. Okay, so now I have a copy. So when I do run my tests, since this file is not excluded, this vending machine file is not excluded, this is the test file that will be run. Okay, and the other thing that I have here is the page object file. So same thing, you can copy that and kind of rename, and then we'll call this vending machine.page.js is just fine. Okay, so we have our two files, and if you don't understand some of the things that we're going through right now with this, I do have a course on Udemy that goes into detail on every single thing that I'm doing here. It goes into detail on all the ESLint, gitignore, the prettier RC, and page objects, which is this, and the spec files, the config files. So basically everything that I'm going through right now very quickly, it's covered in detail. I think it's over 20 hours of course content that teaches you everything you need to know how to do WebdriverIO. I'll throw that link in the description also, but this is kind of just for demonstration purposes, so don't worry if everything doesn't make sense here. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is so that warning that keeps on popping up was telling me to do something. So first thing I need to do is, so since I did pull in this project, it is a Node project, and it has this package.json, which is all the dependencies. So that means that these are all the things that I need to install in order for this project to work. All right, so in order to do that, all I have to do is type npm space install in the command line here, and make sure it's on the directory of where you are. So I actually need to be into that. So you see where this package.json file, it's inside of this WDIO starter file. So I need to cd space WDIO starter files, and now I can do npm space install. And what this will do will go out onto the internet and find and download each one of these dependencies onto my system. And this error should stop popping up after that happens. And you can see already Node modules folder is here, which is where those files for those dependencies are installed. And this will take like a minute or two depending on connectivity and all that stuff. So let's just give this a moment to continue. And while I'm waiting for this, if you do decide to take the Udemy course, make sure you hit up my website, glitchitsystem.com, and look at the blog post on the bottom, because there's a monthly blog post that gives you coupons for Udemy courses since they expire every month. So make sure you grab one of those coupon codes, and you will be able to get the discounted version of the course throughout the year or whenever you're watching this video. So this is taking a minute here, so I'm just gonna pause the video, or maybe it's finished. Yep, finished. Okay, so it's done now. Hopefully that error doesn't pop up anymore, but you can see that 482 packages were installed. I can clear my screen here. All right. Okay, so first thing we'll do now, the real first thing is let's pull this side by side here. So I have Vending Machine on the left, and I have my two files. So make sure you have your Vending Machine Spec open and your Vending Machine page open, because we're going to be using those together. First thing I need to do is I'm going to rename this class to Vending. I'll just call it Vending Page to make it shorter, and that needs to match up here. Okay. So that's good, and then you can uncomment this section out here. So basically this get method here is going to return our elements. So our elements are things like this text here, this input, this button, this text. So those are all elements. So let's do an inspect of that first thing up here. And we're going to do this very simply. So so you can see this is a h1 tag. I can go to copy and then copy selector, and then basically I'm going to replace what's inside of the single quotes there and paste. So it says body greater than sign h1. So this is a CSS selector. So if you don't know what that is, I'll go over that in a different video, but this is basically how WebdriverIO finds the different elements on the page. Okay, so we're going to call this heading text. Okay, and we can go ahead and save that. So we actually already have enough to write a test, right? So here, this line up here that says const some page equals require something, we're going to change this to const vending page equals require pages, and then delete all that stuff. And then if you have the plugin that I said to use, the path IntelliSense, then when you type a /, then it'll give you the files or the folders that are next up. So pages, so we want vending machine page. Okay, so basically this is giving us access to this content here, right? So now I can use the constant of vending page, and I can say vending page dot heading text, and then I can get the text of something. Okay. And make sure there's a quote wrapped in quotes. Okay, so describe, this is the name of the test suite, so we're going to call this Vending Machine Suite. Okay, you can ignore these before, actually before each we're going to use, so before each test that we execute we need to do something. So what we need to do is we need to do browser.url and then parentheses, and then just put 2 single quotes in there. So basically what this is going to do is this is going to take the path that we put in our base URL for our config file here. So you can see this path, this is the base URL, so it's going to take that when it says browser.url, and then that's what's going to be loaded onto the screen. Okay, and so before each test it's going to load the page, and then here's our test down here. So it should have correct heading text. Okay, all right, so I'm going to, so basically it's going to load the page, and then I have to assert, so this is basically saying verify, so assert dot equal, so verify that something is equal, and basically you have to put the actual, so the item that you want verified, so this is going to be vending page dot heading text dot and I need to get text, so it's going to get the text of that element. So this is going to work on things like headings, paragraphs, body, anything where you can see like the H1 and it has some values between the opening and closing tag. So get text, so that's the actual, and then the expected is going to be what you want it to be. So we can say vending machine. Okay, and go ahead and save that. And I'm also going to do something, so after each I'm going to do a browser.pause, and then I'll say 5,000 milliseconds, so that's 5 seconds. So basically I want it to pause for 5 seconds after it's done executing the test, just so that I can see where the test ended up. Otherwise the page is going to open, close real fast, and I'm not going to really see anything happen for some of these interactions. Okay, so we can actually execute the test now. So we can do npm space test, or actually npm space test, and then we need to put the name of our config file, which is wdio.conf.js, and just hit enter, and that's all you need to do. So it's going to spin up Chrome, and there it is, and you can see that it's opened up our vending page. And awesome, and it says that the test passed, so it says 1 passing, so it should have correct heading text. And you can see things like vending machine suite, which is what we defined up here, and then this is the name of the test. And let's just check to see what would happen if it failed. So I'm going to change it to vending machines, and let's go ahead and run that test again. Make sure you save the file before you run the test, or else nothing's going to happen. Okay, and you can kind of already see that there's an error back here, but now you can see that expected vending machine to equal vending machines. So we know for sure that our assertion, our verification is working correctly, and that's good. So let's go ahead and do another one here. So I'm not going to run through all of the tests, but I will just show you a few examples here. So let's go ahead and copy, actually we can just write it by hand. So it, parentheses, and then the name of the test. So should purchase a Coke. All right, so should purchase a Coke. And then we need to put a callback function, which is this notation here. And then basically we need to tell it what to do. So we need to grab a few more elements. So what we need to grab is, we need to grab the amount of money that we need to put in. So I think the sodas are $1.60. So let me put $1.50 and 60. So $1.60 if I choose Coke. Oh, 30 cents has been dispensed. So the sodas are $1.30. So let's put a note in here. Let's put a comment. Sodas are $1.30. Okay, just so that we know. Okay, so what I will do is, I'm not too concerned about these labels, but I care about these text fields here. So let's inspect. And then you can see that each text field has the name of, or has an ID of the denomination. So this is ones, fives, nickels, dimes. So that'll make it pretty easy. So let's do get ones field. And this is going to return dollar parentheses. And then we can do this hash for the, since it's ID, and then we can say ones. Okay, and I'm just going to copy this. Oop. Keep on hitting the wrong key. So copy, paste, 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 paste. Okay, so ones fields, and then the second one is fives. So this is fives. The third one is nickels. So this is nickels. And then it's dimes. Dimes. And then it's quarters. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I have one too many here. All right, so I have each of these fields, and then the next thing, I said I'm going to buy a Coke, so I'm just going to get the button for Coke, but if you're fully building this out, feel free to get the buttons for all of them, and you can see I put IDs on these based on the name, so Coke, Moxie, Frescus tab, so get Coke button, and then return dollar hash Coke. Okay, so now I have the Coke button, and then let's see, what I will get is, I'm going to get this message down here. So inspect. So let's say get info message text, and that's going to return dollar something here. So let's see, inspect again. So that's this guy here. So this has an ID of message, so that makes it super easy. So hash message. Okay, so I think we have enough to test this now. So what we need to do is we need to enter money in. So vending page dot ones field dot set value. So this is how you set value into a field. So set value, and then the value. So I can put 1, so that's fine. And then vending page dot let's see, quarters field dot set value, and then we want 2 quarters. So actually we want 1 quarter. So that's $1.25. And then vending page dot set value. Vending page dot nickels field dot set value is 1. Okay, so save that, and then what we need to do is vending page dot Coke button dot click. So that will click the button, and then what we're going to do is assert dot equal, and then what we want is vending page dot info message text dot get text, and that should equal to something. So let's find out what it equals to. So 1, 1, and 1, and Coke. So it's just going to equal Coke has been dispensed. Okay, All right, we can go ahead and save that. I'm going to let both tests run here. So if I run this command, it's going to run both tests now. And it should have a 5-second delay between each test since we put that in there. So there's one. And here's the second test, and you can see that it did interact and it did change it to Coke has been dispensed. Okay, and both tests pass. All right, so that's kind of basically it. You can feel free to go ahead and write out the rest of the tests for this, because if I do, it's going to take a bit of time, but it's kind of a rinse and repeat process right now, because we've already gotten like probably 3/4 of the elements already defined in our page objects file, and then we just need to script out the test. We just need to say what we want to happen and then what we expect to be displayed after we did something, and that's kind of it. So as I said before, if you're interested more about learning how to use WebdriverIO and automate some testing, find my Udemy course description link or my Udemy course in the description link, and make sure you get the coupon code from my website, or you can just head over to the website, which has all the links to my courses with the coupon codes, and feel free to go ahead and learn that. And I go over in detail, as I said, all of these things and more, so you'll be a pretty good understanding of how to use WebdriverIO and how to do automated front-end web testing. All right, that's it, guys. Until next time.